The fire was dying. Its last flickers painted trembling shadows across the walls of the old wooden cabin, deep in the frozen wilderness of Montana. Snow pressed against the windows like a living thing, and the wind howled through the cracks, whispering of death. Inside, a boy sat with his back to the fire, his small frame wrapped in a torn blanket, his hands trembling around the muzzle of a wolf's grey head that lay across his knees. The wolf's breathing was shallow, labored, his golden eyes half open, but still watching the boy with a love that defied words. The boy's name was Noah. The wolf's name was Rook. They had survived storms, hunger, and men with guns. They had found each other when the world had given up on both of them, an orphan boy abandoned by fate and a wounded wolf cast out by his own kind. Together, they had carved out a fragile peace in the wild. But tonight, that peace was ending. As the blizzard outside grew stronger, Noah whispered through his tears, "Don't leave me, please." Rook's ears twitched. He lifted his head weakly and pressed his nose against the boy's hand. It was a gesture of comfort, the same one he had given the first night they met, and that was when Noah realized this was no ordinary night. This was goodbye. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. It helps us bring you more powerful stories about the bonds that defy the wild. Stories of love, loyalty, and sacrifice that remind us how even in nature's coldest places, compassion still burns bright. Because what happened that night between Noah and Rook didn't just change 2 lives, it changed millions of hearts. The blizzard came without warning, rolling down from the mountains like a wall of white fury. It swallowed the forest, silenced the river, and erased the world beneath an ocean of snow. Somewhere in that merciless storm, a boy no older than 10 stumbled through the drifts, his breath shallow, his face pale, his coat far too thin for the cold. His name was Noah. He didn't remember how long he had been walking. His legs burned with every step, his fingers numb and stiff. Behind him, faint footprints vanished almost instantly as the wind tore across the frozen ground. He had been in the car with his mother only hours before. Her laughter, the hum of the heater, the faint sound of a song on the radio. Then came the crash, the black ice, the spin. The silence afterward. He had called out for her, over and over, but there was no answer, only the snow. Now he was alone in the storm, a dark speck against an endless sheet of white. He stumbled once more and fell to his knees. His eyes were half closed, heavy with exhaustion. The cold wasn't painful anymore. It was soft, gentle, like falling asleep. He thought about closing his eyes and letting the snow cover him. Maybe he would see his mother again. Maybe the pain would stop, but then something moved. At first he thought it was just the wind shaping shadows in the snow. But no, it was alive. A shape emerged through the white veil, moving low and steady, silent as breath. 2 golden eyes cut through the storm, burning with intelligence. A wolf. The creature stood only a few feet away, its thick grey coat dusted with snow, its body strong yet lean, built for survival. Noah froze. His heart thudded weakly against his ribs. He had heard stories. Wolves attacked people, tore them apart, but this one didn't move. It simply stared. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Noah couldn't tell. Then the wolf stepped closer, lowering its head slightly. Its ears twitched, its breath forming clouds in the frozen air. Noah's instinct screamed to run, but his body wouldn't obey. He just watched, trembling. And then the wolf did something unexpected. It turned its body sideways, pressing closer until Noah felt the rough brush of fur against his sleeve. The wolf circled him once, then lay down beside him, curling its massive body against the boy's small frame. Heat spread through the blanket of snow, real warmth. Noah blinked, tears freezing on his lashes. "Why?" he whispered, voice barely audible. "Why are you helping me?" The wolf's eyes met his. There was no answer, no sound, just a shared silence that carried something beyond language. Noah leaned against the animal, too weak to question it further. Slowly, the warmth lulled him toward sleep. The storm raged on, but for the first time that night he wasn't afraid. When dawn broke, the blizzard had passed. The world was blinding white, the air still and cruelly cold. Noah stirred under a thin crust of frost, his body stiff but alive. The wolf was gone. Panic flared in his chest. "No!" he cried, sitting up, scanning the empty clearing. The snow was smooth and untouched, except for a trail of paw prints leading toward the forest. He struggled to his feet, his voice cracking. "Come back!" The only response was the whisper of the wind. Noah took one shaky step after the tracks, then another. His boots sank deep into the snow, but he followed anyway, clutching his blanket tight around him. The wolf had saved him, and now he was all he had left. The tracks wound between the trees, through a frozen creek, up a ridge where the wind screamed like ghosts. Hours passed before Noah finally saw it, the grey shape moving ahead. Relief flooded through him, though his voice was too weak to call out. The wolf stopped suddenly. Its ears pricked. It turned its head slightly toward the boy, then looked beyond him, toward the tree line. Noah followed its gaze and froze. Men, 3 of them, wrapped in heavy coats, carrying rifles. "Hunters! Over there!" one shouted. "It's the wolf!" The wolf growled low, the sound vibrating through the snow. The men raised their guns. "No!" Noah screamed, stumbling forward. "Don't hurt him!" The shot cracked through the still air. The wolf leapt aside, snow exploding around it. Another shot followed, then another. Noah threw himself in front of the wolf, his arms spread wide. "Stop, please!" The hunters hesitated. One of them lowered his gun slightly. "Kid, get away from it! That thing will tear you apart." "He saved me," Noah cried. "He's not like the others!" For a moment no one moved. The wolf stood behind him, panting. Its fur bristled, but its eyes calm, protective, not violent. The oldest hunter, a man with a scar across his cheek, studied the boy. Then he spat into the snow. "You're out of your mind, kid. That's no pet. That's a killer." He raised his rifle again. Before he could fire, the wolf lunged. It didn't attack. It shoved Noah out of the way, taking the bullet meant for him. The echo rolled through the forest like thunder. "No!" Noah fell to his knees as the wolf collapsed beside him. Blood seeped into the snow, turning it crimson. The boy pressed his hands against the wound, crying, "Please, no, please!" The wolf's golden eyes met his one last time, not in pain, but in peace. As if to say, "You'll be okay." The hunters backed away, muttering curses, vanishing into the trees. Noah sat there in the cold, cradling the wolf's head in his lap as the light began to fade, and somewhere in that dying light, a bond that had defied nature finally reached its end. But the story wasn't over, because as the snow began to fall again, the boy whispered a promise, one that would change his life forever. "I'll carry you with me, always." The sky was a dull sheet of silver when Noah opened his eyes. His body ached, his fingers stiff from the cold, but the first thing he felt was emptiness. The space beside him, where Rook had lain, was bare. The snow was disturbed, paw prints, faint bloodstains, then nothing. He blinked, trying to understand. The wolf had been dying. He'd seen it. He'd held him. How could he be gone? Noah rose to his knees, heart hammering. The storm had quieted overnight, but the forest looked endless, a maze of white and grey. He called out into the stillness, "Rook!" Only the wind answered. He followed the trail, his breath clouding the air. Each print sank deep, each one proof that Rook had somehow gotten back up and walked away. Noah didn't question how, only that he had to find him. He'd promised he would never leave him behind. The boy moved slowly through the snow, his boots crunching with each step. Every tree looked the same, skeletal arms reaching toward the sky. His vision blurred from exhaustion. Hunger clawed at his stomach. He hadn't eaten since before the crash. Before the cold took everything, he stumbled on a hidden branch and fell hard, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. He lay there for a moment, watching his breath fog the air. Then something shifted above him, a single grey feather drifting down through the trees. Not a feather, a piece of fur. He looked up. On the ridge above, half hidden behind the pines, stood Rook. The wolf's left shoulder was matted with blood, but he was standing, alive. His eyes met Noah's for a heartbeat before he turned and disappeared deeper into the forest. "Rook, wait!" Noah ran after him, slipping, gasping, his body screaming in protest. Every time he thought he was close, the wolf stayed just out of reach, a shadow moving between trees, silent and swift. It was as if he wanted to be followed, but not caught. By midday, the storm clouds began to gather again. The boy's pace slowed, his vision darkened. Then the world tilted, and he collapsed into the snow. When he woke, it was night. The fire crackled softly, its glow dancing across the walls of a cave. He was warm. For a moment he thought he was dead, that this was some kind of dream. Then he saw the wolf. Rook lay a few feet away, curled up but awake, watching him. His fur shimmered faintly in the firelight, and though the wound on his shoulder looked raw, it had been cleaned. Noah sat up, dazed. "You found me." The wolf blinked slowly, his tail twitching once against the ground. The boy smiled weakly. "You saved me again." He looked around the cave. There was a pile of dry branches, enough wood to keep the fire alive. There was even a small rabbit carcass beside him, half frozen. The wolf must have hunted despite his injury. Noah's throat tightened. "You did all this?" Rook said nothing, of course, but his gaze softened. The boy tore off a small piece of meat and roasted it over the flame. When it was done, he placed half near the wolf. "You need it more than I do." The wolf hesitated before lowering his head to eat. They sat in silence, sharing the warmth and the meal, the blizzard raging outside. For the first time in days, Noah didn't feel alone. By morning, Rook was restless. He paced near the cave entrance, ears flicking at every sound. Noah noticed it too. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no movement. Then came the noise, the crunch of snow. Distant rhythmic men. Noah froze. "The hunters!" Rook lifted his head, nostrils flaring. He growled low, the sound deep and dangerous. The boy grabbed a small stick from the fire, the only thing he could use as a weapon. His heart pounded in his chest. Voices carried through the trees. "Tracks lead this way!" "The wolf's hurt. Won't get far." Noah looked at Rook. "We have to go." The wolf turned to him, eyes sharp. He didn't need words. The message was clear. "Follow me." They fled through the back of the cave into a narrow crevice that opened onto the mountainside. The snow blinded Noah as he stumbled after Rook. The wind screamed, biting his skin raw. Below them, voices echoed. "He's close!" "I see smoke." Rook darted ahead, leaping from rock to rock, graceful despite his wound. Noah followed, clutching the wolf's trail as if it were the only thread holding him to life. Then his foot slipped. He tumbled down the slope, crashing through the snow until a tree stopped his fall. Pain shot through his ribs. He gasped, blinking the frost from his eyes. Rook appeared moments later, panting, his fur dusted with snow. He nudged the boy's arm, urging him up. "I can't," Noah whispered. His body felt broken, heavy. "I can't move," the wolf growled softly, circling him. His breath clouded the air, his eyes burning with urgency. Then he did something Noah would never forget. Rook pressed his shoulder under the boy's arm, heaving his body upward. Slowly, painfully, he began to drag him through the snow. "No, you'll get worse," Noah cried weakly. "Please, leave me." But the wolf didn't stop. His claws dug deep, his muscles trembling with effort. Inch by inch, they climbed back up the slope, the storm swirling around them. Behind them, the hunters shouted. A gunshot split the air, echoing through the valley. Snow exploded near them, showering Rook's back with shards of ice. "Keep going," Noah whispered through tears. "Please, Rook, just a little more." The wolf's body strained. Blood darkened his fur again. But he didn't stop. When they finally reached the ridge, Noah turned his head weakly and saw the truth. The wolf was bleeding badly now. His steps faltered. "No," the boy gasped. "Don't you dare stop." Rook pressed on until they reached a shallow hollow beneath the rocks. There he let the boy slip gently onto the snow. His legs buckled and he collapsed beside him. The gunfire had stopped. The hunters' voices faded into the wind. Either they'd lost the trail or the mountain had claimed them. Noah crawled to Rook's side, clutching his fur. "You're bleeding again. Please, please don't leave me." The wolf lifted his head weakly, eyes reflecting the faint light of dawn. He pressed his nose to the boy's hand, the same gesture as that first night in the blizzard. Noah broke into sobs, pulling him close. "You're all I have left." The wolf closed his eyes. Exhausted but alive, the storm howled around them like the breath of the earth itself. But inside that hollow, boy and wolf shared a silence that no blizzard could break, a fragile peace, carved in snow and blood. And though Noah didn't know it yet, this was not their end. It was the beginning of their last night together. The day broke like a blade of ice, sharp, merciless, and cold enough to steal breath. Noah woke to the sound of Rook's labored breathing beside him. The wolf's flank rose and fell unevenly, his fur darkened by a spreading stain of red that refused to stop bleeding. For a moment, the boy thought it was a nightmare. The snowstorm, the fall, the gunshots, all of it. But when he touched the wolf's fur and felt the sticky warmth on his fingers, he knew it was real. "Rook," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You have to stay with me." The wolf stirred weakly, his golden eyes flickering open. He gave a low rumble, not a growl, but a sound closer to reassurance. Even now, when pain racked his body, Rook's gaze told the boy one thing: don't give up. Noah swallowed his fear and forced himself to think. They were safe for the moment, hidden in the hollow beneath the rocks. But the hunters were still out there, 3 men with rifles, determination, and revenge. The snow would hide their tracks for only so long. He needed to stop the bleeding. He remembered the herbs Samuel had once used in another life, before all of this, when kindness still existed somewhere in the world. But there were no herbs here, no bandages, no help. Noah tore a strip from his shirt, pressing it firmly against the wound. Rook flinched but didn't resist. "I'm sorry," the boy whispered. "I don't know what else to do." The wind screamed outside, sending drifts of snow cascading down the rocks. Every gust made the hollow shudder, and every sound made Noah's heart jump. He imagined shadows moving in the white, the hunters closing in, boots crunching closer with every second. Rook shifted, trying to rise, but his strength gave out. He slumped back, his chest heaving. Noah pressed both hands into his fur. "No, you're not dying. Not after everything. Not after saving me." He thought of the first night they met, the warmth in the storm, the miracle of survival. Back then, he'd been just a terrified boy in the snow. Rook had been the first living thing to show him mercy. Now it was his turn. Noah dragged himself to the cave's edge and peered out into the frozen expanse. A faint trickle of smoke curled from the trees below, the hunters' camp. They were closer than he'd feared. He ducked back inside, panic gripping his chest. "They'll find us," he murmured. "Unless—" His gaze fell on the small pile of wood and pine branches that lay near the wall. He hesitated, the thought forming like a spark. If he could draw the hunters away, maybe Rook would have a chance to rest, to recover. He'd built fires before. Samuel had taught him how to make a torch that could burn even in snow. It was dangerous, stupid even. But it was the only plan he had. Noah gathered the branches and wrapped the ends with cloth torn from his blanket. He dipped them in the melted wax from the candle stub in his pocket, one of the last remnants from the cabin they'd once called home. When he turned to the wolf, Rook was watching him, weary but alert. "I'll come back," Noah said firmly, though his voice trembled. "I promise." The wolf gave a faint chuff of air, as if he understood. Noah crawled out into the open, torch in hand. The wind clawed at him immediately, freezing his face, burning his lungs. He lit the branch from the embers of their small fire and held it high, its orange flame flickering wildly against the endless grey. Then he began to run. The snow was deep, each step a battle. He moved in a wide arc down the slope, far enough to make his tracks seem random. The smoke from his torch would draw the hunters' eyes. They'd see movement, assume it was the wolf, and if they followed him, Rook would be safe. He could hear them shouting before he saw them. "Over there, the flame." "That's him." Noah's heart pounded. He ducked behind a fallen tree, clutching the torch close. The wind carried the men's voices closer, boots crunching, guns cocking. "Be ready," one of them said. That beast's still out here somewhere. Noah swallowed hard and threw the torch as far as he could. It landed in the snow, sputtering, before catching a dry patch of pine needles. Flames licked upward. The hunters shouted and ran toward it. Noah used the moment to slip back toward the rocks, crawling on hands and knees. The cold bit into his skin, but he didn't stop until he was back at the hollow. He slid inside, chest heaving, face red with cold. Rook lifted his head slightly, his breath visible in the dim light. "They're gone," Noah whispered. "For now." He checked the bandage again. The bleeding had slowed, but Rook's fur was cold and damp. The boy lay beside him, wrapping his arms around the wolf's neck. "You'll be okay," he murmured. "You have to be." Rook gave a soft rumble in response, pressing his head gently against the boy's chest. For the first time since the storm began, Noah closed his eyes. He didn't sleep, but drifted, trapped between fear and exhaustion. His mind filled with memories of warmth that no longer existed. His mother's laughter, the smell of pancakes on Sunday mornings, the hum of her voice when she sang him to sleep. He woke hours later to silence. No wind, no movement, just the soft rhythmic sound of breathing, his and Rook's still together. He smiled faintly, hope flickering again, but that fragile peace shattered when he heard it. A branch snapped outside. He sat up, heart thundering. The sound came again, closer this time. Then the metallic click of a rifle. The hunters had doubled back, Rook's head shot up, his ears pricking. He struggled to stand, his body trembling. "No," Noah whispered, tears welling. "You can't fight them again, please." The wolf's gaze met his one last time, steady, unflinching. Then with a low growl, he limped toward the cave entrance. "No!" The boy cried, grabbing at his fur, but Rook pulled free. He stepped into the open, his silhouette framed against the snow. Noah heard the men shouting. Then the rifle cracked. The sound tore through the mountain, echoing for miles. And as the snow began to fall again, Noah realized that sometimes the wild didn't take. It gave. It gave love, loyalty, and sacrifice in the purest form. He ran toward the entrance, screaming Rook's name into the white abyss, but there was only silence. The silence of the wild that had taken everything except the bond that would never die. Noah's scream vanished into the snow like a ghost swallowed by wind. He stumbled out of the hollow, tears freezing to his cheeks. His boots slipped on the ice, his breath coming in ragged bursts that tore at his throat. "Rook!" he shouted again, his voice cracking. The name echoed once, twice, then disappeared beneath the howl of the storm. The mountain slope stretched before him, endless white, broken only by patches of dark rock and scattered trees. At the base of the ridge, he saw it, a blur of grey against the snow. The wolf. Rook lay still, half buried beneath the drifts, his fur dusted with frost. Noah slid down the hill on his knees, landing hard beside him. No, no, no. He pressed his small hands against the wolf's neck, desperate to feel a pulse, warmth, anything. "Please, you can't leave me too. For a moment, nothing." Then a breath. Shallow, broken, but there. Rook's chest rose weakly under Noah's palms. The boy gasped and let out a choked sob. "You're alive!" The wolf's eyes fluttered open, golden even in the storm's grey light. He tried to lift his head but collapsed again, too weak to move. The snow around him was streaked with red. Not much, but enough to tell Noah what he already feared. The bullet had hit deep. "You saved me again," Noah whispered, his voice trembling. "You always do." He tore off his scarf, pressing it against the wound. The wolf winced but didn't fight. "I'm gonna fix you, I promise. I'll find help." But the words felt hollow. There was no one for miles, no roads, no trails, just an ocean of snow and sky. Noah pressed his forehead to Rook's. The wolf's fur was cold and damp, but the faint beat of his heart still pulsed beneath. "You can't leave me," the boy whispered. "Not after everything." The wind shifted, carrying the faintest sound, voices. Distant, muffled, human, the hunters. Noah froze. The echoes came from below, faint but growing clearer. He looked down the slope and saw flickering lights, torches cutting through the white. "They're coming," he breathed. Rook's eyes opened again. He heard it too. He tried to rise, but his legs failed. No, Noah said quickly. You can't fight. You'll die. The wolf turned his gaze toward him, calm, steady, full of something that went beyond words. Go. Noah shook his head violently. I'm not leaving you. Rook let out a low growl, not of anger but insistence. He shifted, dragging himself forward, leaving streaks of blood in the snow. The boy clutched his fur, sobbing. Stop! You'll make it worse! But Rook didn't stop. He crawled toward the edge of the ridge, where the snow dipped sharply into the valley below. He turned his head one last time to look at Noah, and in that gaze, the boy understood. The hunters would come for him if they found him here. They would kill him too. Rook wasn't just saving himself anymore. He was saving Noah. No, the boy whispered, tears blurring his vision. Please don't. The wolf's body trembled. Then he lifted his head to the storm and let out a howl, long, raw, and beautiful. It echoed across the mountains, filling the sky with a sound that was both life and farewell. The hunters stopped. Noah could hear them shouting below, their voices confused. Over there, the wolf! He's still alive! Rook's howl faded into silence. He took one last breath, then pushed himself forward. Over the ridge. No! Noah screamed, lunging after him. He reached the edge and looked down, his heart shattering. Below, the snow lay still. The gray shape at the bottom didn't move. The boy's knees buckled. He fell to the ground, sobbing into his hands. The wind howled. The snow burned against his skin, but he didn't feel any of it. The world had gone quiet, too quiet. Rook was gone. He didn't remember how long he stayed there. Time meant nothing. The storm eased, the clouds parted, and the first stars appeared above the white wilderness. When he finally moved, his limbs felt heavy, his heart even heavier. Noah stumbled down the slope, sliding through the snow, until he reached the place where Rook had fallen. The wolf lay half-buried, his eyes closed, his fur matted with snow. There was no pain on his face, only peace. Noah sank beside him, resting his head against Rook's chest. You were my only family, he whispered. You saved me when no one else would. You were the only thing that ever stayed. He sat there for hours, the moon climbing higher, bathing them both in silver light. When dawn came, he used his bare hands to dig through the frozen earth. The ground was hard, unyielding, but he didn't stop. He buried Rook beneath a tall pine overlooking the valley. From there, the wolf could still see the stars, the snow, and the endless sky he'd once ruled. When it was done, Noah placed the scarf, the one he'd used to stop the bleeding, over the mound. He sat there in silence, his heart breaking with every breath. The wind was gentle now, almost kind. It brushed through the trees like a whisper. Noah closed his eyes. You're not gone, he said softly. You're part of this place now, part of me. He didn't see it at first, the movement on the ridge. A flash of grey fur, quick as lightning, vanishing into the tree line. He blinked, unsure if it was real. But something inside him knew. Rook's pack had come. The wolves stood in the distance, silent and still, watching the boy with their golden eyes. There was no hostility, no growling, only recognition. One of them, larger than the rest, lifted its head and let out a single, low howl. Noah felt tears fall again, but this time they weren't only of grief. Goodbye, he whispered. The wolves turned and vanished into the forest, their forms swallowed by the dawn. Noah stood slowly, the snow crunching beneath his boots. He took one last look at the grave beneath the pine, then turned toward the horizon. The world was still vast and cruel, but now he carried something within him that the cold could never take: courage, loyalty, and love stronger than death itself. As he walked, a single wolf's howl rose from somewhere in the distance, low, steady, eternal, and Noah smiled through his tears. I hear you, Rook, he whispered. I'll keep walking. The snow fell gently around him, covering the boy's footprints one by one, but not erasing the story they told. The story of an orphan and a wolf who taught the world that love, once found, never truly dies. Years passed like melting snow, slowly, quietly, until the memory of the storm became something that lived not in the air, but in the heart. The mountains of Montana were calmer now, though the winters still came fierce and cold. Somewhere between those peaks and valleys, where a tall pine overlooked a frozen river, there stood a small wooden cabin. Smoke rose gently from its chimney, curling into the sky like a peaceful sigh. Inside that cabin lived a man named Noah Hart. He was 25 now, tall and strong, with weathered hands and eyes, the same deep gray as the wolf who had once saved him. His voice carried calmness, but his silence held weight, the kind born from survival. He had built this place himself, plank by plank, right beside the grave beneath the pine tree. And though the winters never got easier, Noah had long since stopped fearing the cold, because the cold, he'd learned, could be endured. On this morning, the snow was falling softly, thick and quiet, the kind that muffled the world. Noah stood outside with an axe, splitting wood in rhythm, his breath forming small clouds. When he stopped to rest, he looked toward the pine and smiled faintly. "Still watching me, huh?" he said softly. The mound beneath the tree had been there for 15 years, but Noah still brushed it clean every morning, keeping the scarf tied around the marker. It was faded now, the color nearly gone, but he refused to replace it. That scarf had been Rook's last link to him, and he wasn't about to let time erase it. He placed another log on the stump and brought the axe down with a clean crack. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. "Dad," a small voice, high and gentle. Noah turned and smiled. Standing in the doorway was a boy, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a thick blanket, his cheeks rosy from sleep. His dark hair fell messily over his forehead, and his wide, curious eyes watched the snow with wonder. "Back inside, Will," Noah said. "It's freezing." The boy shook his head. "You promised we'd go to the ridge today." Noah chuckled. "And we will, but not before breakfast." The boy grinned, then darted inside, the sound of his laughter echoing faintly across the snow. Noah's chest warmed at the sound. That laugh had become the fire that kept his heart alive. He had found Will 6 years ago, wandering near the edge of the same forest that had once nearly claimed him. The boy had been alone, half-starved, his parents gone after a winter accident. The moment Noah had seen him, shivering and scared beneath the trees, he'd known what to do, because once he had been that boy, and once something had saved him. After breakfast, the two of them bundled up and began their climb toward the ridge. The snow came down heavier now, flakes clinging to their coats and eyelashes. Will led the way, his small boots leaving prints that Noah followed carefully. "Do you think we'll see them again?" Will asked suddenly. "Who?" Noah replied, feigning ignorance, though he already knew. "The wolves," the boy said, his eyes bright. "You said they come down sometimes when it's cold." "They do," Noah said. "But they keep their distance. Wolves are smart. They know when to watch and when to stay hidden." Will nodded thoughtfully, staring at the trees. "Do you think they remember you?" Noah paused mid-step, looking at the boy. "Maybe," he said after a long silence. "But that's not what matters. What matters is that I remember them." They reached the ridge by midday. From up there, the world stretched in every direction, a sea of snow, pine, and silence. The sky was a soft blue now, the storm fading into calm. Will ran to the edge, throwing his arms out as if trying to catch the wind. "It's so big," he shouted. Noah laughed quietly. "It is. That's the wild for you, beautiful and cruel at the same time." He walked to the old pine tree, brushing snow from the grave marker. Will followed, standing beside him. "This is where he's buried, right? The wolf?" "Yeah," Noah said softly. "His name was Rook." Will crouched down and touched the scarf tied to the marker. "You said he saved you?" Noah nodded. "More than once. He saved me from the cold, from hunters, from giving up. But most of all, he taught me what loyalty really means." Will looked up. "Did it hurt when he died?" Noah's throat tightened. "Yeah," he said after a pause. "It hurt worse than anything, but pain like that means something. It means you were lucky enough to love something worth losing." The boy frowned thoughtfully. "Do you miss him?" "Every day," Noah whispered. "But I don't feel alone anymore, because every time the wind blows through those trees, every time a wolf howls in the distance, I know he's still out there, watching over us. As if on cue, a distant howl rolled through the valley. Will gasped. "Dad, did you hear that?" Noah's eyes widened. The sound came again, low, deep, and hauntingly familiar. It echoed off the mountains, fading into the sky. He smiled. "Yeah, I heard it." They both stood in silence for a moment, snow swirling around them, the pine branches whispering above. The world felt alive again, breathing, listening, remembering. That night back at the cabin, Noah lit a single candle on the windowsill. The snow outside glowed faintly under the moonlight. Will was asleep, curled beneath his blanket, clutching the small wooden carving of a wolf that Noah had made for him years earlier. Noah sat by the window, watching the horizon. His reflection looked older than he remembered, but his eyes, those grey eyes, still carried the wild within them. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small charm, a tuft of grey fur wrapped in leather. Rook's fur. It had survived everything, the storms, the years, the world's indifference. He held it tightly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You kept your promise, old friend. You never left." Outside, the wind rose, soft and steady, carrying a sound that could have been nothing more than the air, or everything more than chance. A long, faint howl. Noah smiled, tears filling his eyes. "I know," he murmured. "I'm not alone." He blew out the candle, letting the night reclaim its silence. The moonlight poured through the window, glinting off the carving in his son's hand, a wolf and a boy standing side by side, and outside, beneath the pine, the snow glistened faintly where it covered the old grave, a reminder that love born in the wild never truly dies. It simply changes shape, passing from fur to flesh, from memory to legacy, because the story of the orphan and the wolf hadn't ended in the storm. It had only just begun. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who believes that even in the coldest places, love can still survive. Because sometimes the wild doesn't take, it gives.